need more money, connections, associations, and what you would call a relaxed mind? Have you ever wondered why some folks are regarded as high flyers and successful people with results to show? You know the names. It's been found out that the difference between these high flyers and successful people is mindsets and how they think. Welcome to Baseline Beats with Benga. Here is this week's episode.
It's a pleasure to have you hang around and be here. We seek to motivate ourselves to have the right perspectives such that the adequate dose of energy is what you start your day with. I am Benga. We're looking at decision making today and looking at all of the areas and the things that might make decision making sometimes difficult as they might seem. But of course, by the time we're done with this, I'm sure that you'll be able to see and realize that maybe it's not so difficult as it might be. Are there gray areas to consider in making decisions? So here we go. Let me share a story. This is credited to the great critic Leo Veltki-Julian. Listen to this. A group of children were playing near two railway tracks, one still in use while the other disused. Only one child on the disused track, the rest on the operational track. A train is approaching and you're just beside the track interchange. You can make the train change its course to the disused track and save most of the kids. However, that would also mean the lone child playing by the disused track will be sacrificed. Or would you rather let the train go its way? Here's my question. What decision would you make? I'll get back to this. Let's listen to Crossroads by Tracy Chapman as we seek to drive this home. Stay here.
Like you own my life. You never made a sacrifice. Demons there on my trail, standing at the crossroads of a hell. I look to the left, I look to the right. Hands that grab me on every side. Folks think I got my prize.
It's a pleasure to still have you stay here. And so we'll get back to this. Decision making being the topic of the discourse today. There are steps you can take to make your decision making process worth it. And let's face it, every decision comes with risks or some form of risks, as the case might be. And it's just a matter of assessing the situation and trying to make the right decision that should have the most rewards and less of the risks. Again, I'm not sure there is any decision that is devoid of risks, as the case is. It's just a matter of weighing the options and looking at what risks can you live with, what risks are worth taking, what risks can you say that I'm glad that I took these risks when I took them. And so what are these steps again? First is to identify the decision. You cannot make progress. You cannot move forward. You cannot think of that next step if you cannot think about what the decision is. You have to identify. And it's usually said that a problem identified is half solved. I should say that again so it sinks in. A problem identified is half solved. That's why companies go all the way to troubleshoot to ensure that they can identify what the challenge is. What exactly is the decision you're trying to make? If you cannot identify, then you cannot even go on to say that you want to go through the process of decision making. And so identification being that very first step is very, very key. and identification can be as difficult as it gets, because sometimes your mindset is on one decision or on one particular instance, and that might just not be the problem. Well, decision making and problem solving usually go hand in hand in the real world, and trying to troubleshoot and ensure that you do the right thing. But then I'm focusing on decision making today, and so identify the decision. Next step is to gather relevant information. Now, this gathering of the relevant information is supposed to also help you to adequately identify the decision. You cannot just say that you found it if certain factors and certain indices are not pointing you in some certain direction. You have to gather relevant information to buttress your point. And that's why statistics are pretty important. You don't come up with claims or with findings without or with observations or with conclusions if there had been no permutations leading up to that. There must have been some, maybe this, maybe that, let's do this, let's try that. What if it's that option? What if it's this? And so you have to gather relevant information. After that is to identify the alternatives. In life and in every process, there are always alternatives. Most times people are oblivious to that fact, because for what it's worth, mindset plays a major role in imbibing the fact that there are alternatives. It's never a one-way traffic when you have to make decisions. You always have alternatives. But sometimes, because of the urgency of having to make a decision, sometimes you find that your attention is focused on the easily seen alternatives as against the ones that are much more hidden. And the hidden ones might be the ones that you should actually focus on, that hold the key to making the right decision. And so you have to identify the alternatives. And in the process of identification of these alternatives, you have to consider every alternative so that you leave no stone unturned eventually. Now, after identifying the alternatives, the next is to weigh the evidence. You see, in making decisions, you have to back up what alternatives you want to settle with evidences. For what it's worth, note that you would not be the first to go through the process that you're going through. And that also means that in your considering that particular alternative, look back and also ask yourself the question, has this been done before? If it has been done before, what were the courses of action taken? Or what actions were taken ultimately? And so when you're able to identify all of those, it just means that you are walking what has been walked before. And in that process, you're wasting less time, because it's just a matter of you walking the process that has been walked already before, which saves you much more time. And so weigh up the evidence. Just don't arrive at conclusions or permutations without having to weigh up the evidence to back up the claims that you're trying to put forward. And so, after identifying the alternatives again, ensure that you weigh the evidence. What you do next after weighing the evidence is to choose among alternatives. You have considered every alternative. You have used evidences to try to back them up here and there by asking adequate questions to those who might have happened to before, to look at how you can also make progress in this regard. And so, let's assume, for the sake of having this and listening to this, you have 5 alternatives and you have considered every single alternative based on evidences available. You've asked all the questions that you could ask. And you see, in asking the questions, it's also important to know that no question is actually stupid. And that's because whatever choice anyone made at any point in time, it might have been based on evidences available to them at that time, which might have been improved upon, or more evidences might have surfaced. And so it is important that you choose among alternatives based on evidences you've ascribed to all of the alternatives available. And so you choose the one that you think is best fit. And after this comes the big one. You have to take actions. I mentioned in previous episodes to this that the most important thing to making progress, to being successful, is ultimately the big one: action. You can permutate for all you like. You can weigh up evidences for all you like. You can gather relevant information for all you like. You can identify decisions for all you like. But until you take action, nothing ever happens. That brings me to one of the laws of physics I learned years ago, and that's the law of inertia, that states that everything remains in a state of rest until an external force acts on those things or on that object. And so that action part, very, very necessary. And now comes another pretty important one right after taking actions, and that's the fact that you should review your decision and its consequences. Most times, people take actions without having to look at them in retrospect. What did not happen as a result of the actions they took? What did not happen as a result of the actions they did not take? I mean, all of these are just pretty important questions to always ask at the point of having to evaluate, which is exactly what this final point is. Review your decisions and its consequences, meaning that you evaluate and you weigh them. What rewards did you get as a result of taking the actions that you did take? What happened after taking those actions? What are the results that you got? It's just as basic as it sounds. Let me get back to the story now. You either would have made the train to continue its course and most of the kids would have died, or diverted the train to the track where only one child is and save most of the children. Now, again, decision-making process, most times not exactly straightforward because you'd have to weigh options, consider the consequences. And so, this kind of dilemma will face every time. Have you ever thought that the child choosing to play on the disused track had made the right decision to play at a safe place? Did you also consider the fact that he made the right decision regardless of numbers and that he was sidelined? You see, you had this cluster of kids who were on the used track deciding to play on that particular used track or still in used track, as against having this one child who decided to play on the disused track. And because he was outnumbered, the tendency is to feel that he had made the wrong decision. In fact, most would have thought, let's save the number or the larger number and let's forgo the one. I mean, it just makes sense to forgo one for more. Even the more might be, say, 2 at the list, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 80, whatever number. And because you have more people who are in sync at whatever point on whatever decision doesn't make it the right one. And the fact that you are alone doesn't mean you've made the wrong decision. And so most will have said, let's forgo the one and save, like some people will have retorted, they save 99. Looks like a bargain when you have 99 to 1, but have you ever considered as well that when that one is saved, then you're saving someone who would most likely teach others to also make the right decisions? Your decisions must not be about popular opinions or acceptance, but about right perspectives. It's been fun doing this today. Join me again next time. And you know what it is? I always love to hear from you. You could reach me via socials, Twitter and Instagram to be specific, at Ben_Olugbenga. Don't forget the advice you should get to give. Reach me via Twitter first because I respond fast on Twitter than I do on Instagram. We'll do this again next time we will have to meet. Until then, have a great day.
Baseline Beats with Benga is a wrap for this week. For questions, concerns, and feedback, reach him on Twitter and Instagram at Ben_Olugbenga. Until Baseline Beats with Benga comes away again next week, keep winning and enjoy the rest of the week.